This is one of the best-selling cars in the world, and it's also one of the cars that almost nobody wants to admit they might like.
In a few years' time, I expect that we will see you driving a rechargeable electric vehicle.
You won't. That's just astonishing.
In 2023, the Tesla Model Y outsold nearly every car on the planet. Over 1.2 million units more than the RAV4, more than the Corolla. The first electric vehicle in history to claim that title. In 2024, it finished neck and neck with the RAV4, separated by barely 2,000 units out of over 1 million sold. And by most accounts, it stayed at the near top in 2025. And yet, people who have never sat in it will tell you everything that's wrong with it. I didn't understand it either, until I got one. Growing up, there was an unspoken rule about cars that every kid figured out eventually. You could have speed, or you could have efficiency. You could have luxury, or you could keep it affordable. You could have fun, or you could have something, your family fits in. But you couldn't have all of it. Not in the same car. It was like a checklist designed to be impossible. Toggle one thing on and something else switches off. Want a car that performs like a muscle car? Say goodbye to fuel economy. Want something comfortable and packed with technology? That'll cost you. Want something affordable and reliable? It'll get you there, slowly. I spent years trying to solve this with multiple vehicles. A sporty car for the weekends. Something practical for the family. At one point, I had multiple cars in my garage trying to cover what one couldn't. Every car person has their version of this checklist. The perfect car, the one that does everything. It doesn't exist. Or at least, it didn't for me.
We are here tonight to talk about Model 3.
I'd admired Tesla from a distance for years. Then the brand got complicated and I stopped admiring them.
In suburban Seattle, police say 6 vehicles were tagged at a Tesla dealership.
But the spark never went out. I cared about the technology. Not having experienced a Tesla would have left a gap in my understanding of where cars were going. So I ordered one, a Model Y Juniper, mostly to cross it off my list. Behind this car are brilliant engineers and designers who spent their careers getting to this point.
When we set out to redesign the Model Y, we looked at trying to give the car a little bit more of its own unique personality.
I wanted to see their work for myself. The purchase was almost impulsive. A month before IFA in Berlin, I clicked order. I had 2 round-trip plane tickets. I ended up using one. The plan? Fly to Berlin, pick up the car, drive it 1,300 miles home. The people at the delivery center were kind. They prepared the car, walked me through it, and handed it over. I sat inside. I sat in the future. On seats I didn't love. That's the contradiction of this car, and it started right there. The cabin was unlike anything I'd been in. Quiet, considered. Every surface felt like it existed for a reason. And then you sit down and the seats are just fine. For a car that gets so many things right, fine isn't enough. But then I started driving it. 1,300 miles, 2 days, alone, in an electric car across Europe. The range anxiety I was bracing for never showed up. This car, paired with Tesla's supercharger network, lives in a different world. Not the world of combustion engines, not even the world of other EVs, a different path. Somewhere on that drive, I hit crosswinds, strong ones. In most cars, crosswinds make you grip the wheel tighter, correct constantly. This car just held. The suspension is stiffer than I'd like. You feel the road more than you might like it. And the only real fix is air suspension that Tesla doesn't offer on this model. But that same stiffness and the weight is what makes it feel planted speed. At 130 kilometers in crosswind, I'll take planted any day. And then I started noticing what I'd stopped doing. I stopped starting the car, stopped turning it off, stopped carrying a key, stopped using 2 pedals. Stopped visiting gas stations. Stopped entering a hot car in the summer or a cold one in winter. Stopped worrying about oil changes. Someone online put it perfectly. The list of things you stop doing when you switch to this car is longer than the list of things you start doing. A path where I wake up every morning with a full charge. A path where the car sees what I can see and tells me before I know something is wrong. Even when I'm driving with my 3 kids, and 5 seats works most days, but the long trips, get tight. Even then, I'm resting while commuting. There's one more thing that I can't get used to though. No Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. Where I live, Waze is essential. Speed cameras, road conditions, real-time routing. Without it, I am stuck with a magnetic phone holder on the dashboard of a car that has a 15-inch right here in front of me. Tesla's navigation works, don't get me wrong. It's not bad at all, but it's not Waze, and there's plenty of real estate for that, to fit right in here. And for a car that prides itself on software, not letting me choose my own navigation, feels a little bit stubborn. So my initial plan was to keep my other daily driver as a backup. Do the Tesla experience, make a video, maybe sell it later. 1,300 miles later, I listed my old car for sale that same night. Most people know the Model Y from the outside. They know the shape, the logo, the discourse. What most people don't know is what's underneath. The Juniper refresh wasn't just a facelift. Tesla went back to the fundamentals. They revisited, in their own words, every single component. The result is a car that's 4% more aerodynamic with a drag coefficient of 0.22, which is lower than most sports cars. Nearly 10% more efficient in real-world driving. Over 4 million units delivered worldwide, and this version sitting in my garage, or here outside in this case, is the most refined one they've ever built. But numbers only tell you so much. What they don't tell you is how this car feels. Road vibration is down 51% from the previous model. Wind noise dropped 20%. The overall cabin is 22% quieter. Tesla wrapped the entire cabin in 360-degree acoustic glass, redesigned every door seal, and carpeted every surface that could rattle. In fact, there is so much carpet here that there are plenty of plastic rubber accessories you could find online to make this car feel more like other cars, which is a controversy on its own. The glass roof has a new silver coating that reflects 7 times more heat, so the climate system works less. The cabin stays quieter, and you drive further on a charge. But none of that is what surprised me most. What surprised me is what they hid. Almost every aerial shot you've seen in this episode, by the way, is captured with this, the Antigravity A1. If you've been watching my channel, you know this drone changed how I approach cinematic footage. It's 249 grams, regulation friendly, and the reason I can shoot a documentary-style episode like this one without a full film crew. The Vision goggles weigh just 340 grams and put me inside a first-person 360-degree view through a 1-inch micro OLED display, one on each side. I'm not piloting the drone, I'm in it. Pre-motion means I can point where I want to go, pull the trigger, and the drone follows. Obstacle avoidance handles the rest. Deep track locks onto the car and follows it autonomously, and because it captures everything in 360, I can frame the shot in post, one flight, unlimited angles. Up to 39 minutes of flight time means I'm not rushing either. There is a major firmware update landing in April with a completely reworked auto edit feature. Right now, Antigravity is running their spring promotion, up to 20% off, saving you up to $400. You can use my link in the description, and you'll also get a free Antigravity landing pad with your purchase. Tesla's chief designer, Franz von Holzhausen, said his favorite thing about this new Model Y isn't the car itself. It's the light the rear bar casts on the ground behind it. He compared it to the afterburner glow of a jet engine.
You get this really beautiful puddle of red lights, almost like afterburner behind the car. It's my favorite part of the car. Super excited to see it on the road.
A 5-foot wide diffuse strip that bounces off the tailgate and onto the road. Owners have since discovered that when the car moves, that reflection forms what looks like a Tesla T on the ground behind you. Whether it's intentional or a happy accident of the geometry, Tesla never said. It's just there for whoever notices. The body structure uses mega castings that compress 70 individual parts into one. The front bumper houses a camera with an integrated washer for 180-degree forward visibility.
It also has a fascia camera down here. It's a 180-degree field of view, so we can see objects coming from either side of the car.
The side cameras are shaped to channel water away from the lens, which you appreciate right up until the auto wipers kick in. They decide when to wipe and how fast. And their judgment is questionable. Sometimes they're clearing a drizzle that doesn't exist. Other times they're just sitting still in actual rain. I get that they need to keep the windscreen camera clear, but whoever wrote that algorithm has a complicated relationship with the weather, I think. Back to what works. The drag coefficient dropped to 0.22. The shape of this car is more aerodynamic than most sports cars. And one thing that car guys watching should know, unlike most established manufacturers, Tesla doesn't use sealant on door panels, likely a cost-saving measure. It hasn't caused major problems on earlier Teslas over time, but when a car gets this much right, the shortcuts are more visible. When Jay Leno became one of the first people to drive the Juniper, he said,
"It's lighter, but it feels heavier."
Yeah, it's a good way to
and
put it.
not in the steering, just in the
like the agility, sort of the feel
planted.
of it. Right? Yeah.
That's hard to pull off. Less weight, but more confidence. He also said, "This thing is so fast, it's hilarious." And he wasn't wrong. My European long-range all-wheel drive does 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds out of the box. Mid 4 seconds with the acceleration boost, a software upgrade. That's not a performance model, that's the family spec vehicle. All this from an SUV that seats 5 and charges overnight in my garage. Whether I need to feel something, I just step on it and it goes quietly, instant, without any drama. Woohoo! The Juniper scored 5 stars in Euro NCAP. 91% for adult protection, 93% for child protection, 92% for safety assist. The Volvo EX90, a car that costs significantly more, scored 86% in safety assist. The Tesla scored 92%, the highest in the entire batch. 9 airbags, including one that deploys between the driver and the passenger. 8 cameras watching everything around you. Where I have 2 eyes, this car has 8 on the outside. When my focus drifts, handing something to my kids, my head might go somewhere for a second. The car doesn't drift with me. On multiple occasions, it's warned me about something on the road I didn't see. I met someone who showed me what his Model Y looked after a bad accident, a head-on collision. The car was destroyed, crushed, but the cockpit was intact. His wife and 2 kids were inside. His son was actually injured, but he's okay. They're all alive. He showed me the other car. There was no car left. I couldn't tell you what make or model it was. The battery pack mounted to the floor gives the car a low center of gravity and structural rigidity that you'll never think about until the one moment it matters. You might have noticed I haven't mentioned full self-driving, and I'm not going to. It's not available in Europe yet, and frankly, it wouldn't be fair. A car that costs this much, that's already this safe, that can potentially also drive itself, that's a conversation for another day. But the foundation is already ahead of everything else I've sat in. There's one more thing this car does that almost nothing else on the road does. It gets better over time. My Volkswagen GTI received one update in 3 years. 1. This one had 10 in the last 6 months. Not Christmas gimmicks, real updates. Comfort braking, which smoothed out every stop. Acoustic warnings added to cross-traffic alerts. Improved steering assist. Better third-party charger performance, cabin child presence detection. And the one that stopped me cold, if the car detects it's submerged in water, it now automatically lowers every window and opens the trunk, giving you seconds to escape before the electronics die. That wasn't there when I bought the car. It is now. These aren't patches, these are upgrades delivered overnight. When most manufacturers sell you a car, the version you drove off the lot is in most cases the best it will ever be. The car in my garage today is better than the one I picked up in Berlin. Since I got this car, something I didn't expect keeps happening. People around me had strong opinions about it. Not questions, opinions. At the gym, someone will see me getting out of it, and suddenly I'm in a conversation I didn't start. They'll tell me what they think about the, range, about the brand, about the build quality, and I just nod because I've already driven over 8,000 miles in it, and they're, quoting a headline from 2019. It's not just acquaintances, friends do it too. They bring it up every time they see me near the car, even though I never bring it up myself. They feel the need to share what they think, even though I've never once commented on what they drive. I find it fascinating. A vehicle, a tool I use to get my kids to school, and it provokes people who drive cars 3 times the price and weren't even asked. I've seen this pattern before in tech. When a product genuinely challenges how things are done, the loudest critics are rarely the people who have ever tried it. For this car to be great, your car doesn't have to be bad. That's not how any of this works. But the reaction tells you something. When a product gets under people's skin without them using it, it's actually doing something right. Here's what changed. I can now afford a more expensive car, the muscle car, the midlife crisis machine. But the irony is, I don't want any of them. For the first time in over 25 or 30 cars, the chase is over. I'm not scrolling listings at midnight. I'm not wondering what I'm missing. Instead, I'm looking for accessories because this car might be the most accessorizable vehicle on the road. It's like the iPhone of cars. The fact is, I listed everything for sale. The GTI is going, everything is going. The only thing coming back into my garage is my 1991 Volkswagen Mark I Cabriolet. Not because it does everything, but because it reminds me of why I fell in love with cars in the first place. A car guy who's owned maybe 30 cars, and now he needs only 2. One from the past, one from the future. Turns out the impossible checklist was never impossible. Someone just had to build it.